It's a joy to be with you on this Thursday, and I'd like to encourage you from the example of those in that early church. Now, we're constantly referring to the fact that, things aren't going real well in our country. It's discouraging. We feel the encroachment of secularism on us and a dominant pressure from our government and other parts of our culture that are definitely making it more and more difficult for us as believers. And in the midst of all this, it's easy for us to feel like, we might as well just hold on, what can be done in this day. But you go back to the time of the early church, you had the Roman government, you had the Sanhedrin, which had the power of the Roman government behind them, that were opposed to the development of the church, and they were already coming down, ready to persecute the church. And you have many other problems, such as a financial time of real difficulty that was going to follow. In fact, Paul addresses that later, having the Gentile churches send money back to the Church of Jerusalem. So things were not in good shape, and yet it was during that period that God did one of the greatest works that has been done throughout history, and he wants to do that again today. And we see one of the times of real opposition. And in the midst of that, God blessed. Twice now, Peter has been brought before the Sanhedrin, and he has been punished for his disobedience of them. But right after that, God is working. And we read in verse 42, after they left the council of chapter 5, and daily in the temple and in every house they ceased not to teach and preach Jesus Christ. They did not let what was going on stop them from doing what God wanted them to do. And in verse 7 of chapter 6, they were seeing God work in a wonderful way, and the word of God increased, and the number of the disciples multiplied in Jerusalem greatly, and a great company of the priests were obedient to the faith. And then when Stephen, one of the deacons, preached, and they were not able to resist the wisdom and the spirit by which he spake. And so what we see right in the heart of all of this opposition and persecution and difficulty, you find a church thrilled with the presence of God, seeing God's power displayed through their witness and through their faith in the Lord. And they were seeing results multiplying that would go out from Jerusalem into Judea, all the way up to Antioch of Syria. The Gentile churches would be started, and before the first century was over, the Roman Empire was shaken with the gospel. My friends, it's not political change, though we need to be good citizens. It is going to be a faith in God that allows him to work so that people are brought to the Lord and disciples are multiplied, and that's when great things for God can be accomplished. And even if a country is not changed, they can be shaken. That country can be shaken with the reality of the power and presence of God. And that's what we want. We want God glorified. We want everyone faced with the demands of the gospel and to realize that they can come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. So let's be encouraged. Our day is no worse than the first century. It's no worse than the other centuries in which people have been greatly persecuted, or what's happening in other places of the world. We have a precious opportunity, and may God encourage our hearts to be faithful to his cause.